Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. It is the 7th of November, a Monday, and of course, this is The Point. My name is Anthony, your host, and today, of course, joining me are a couple of gentlemen coming in, of course, today to talk about the big topic. Now, in Uganda today, we are faced with several problems concerning employment, with several Ugandans seeking employment abroad, and many of them, of course, here in Uganda trying to find a job. Currently, the data from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics shows about a 2.94% employment rate, up by 0.2% from last year. Now, another problem we also encounter here is the oppression of many of those who seek employment abroad, many of whom are confused and are trafficked by other fellow human beings to go into modern-day slavery. Today, joining me on the show is Mr. Wilson Owere, who is the Chairman General of the National Organization for Trade Unions, together with Mr. Ronnie Mukundane, who is the PR of the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agencies. You're most welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now, we will start, first of all, this conversation with the minimum wage. Mr. Wede, I understand the National Organization for Trade Unions has several trade unions under it. And one of the things we've seen in other countries, for example, in Kenya, they have set a very effective minimum wage, currently standing at about $124 or 15,000 Kenyan shillings. In Uganda, that's not the case. We have our minimum wage still set at 1.6 US dollars, which is about 6,000 Ugandan shillings per month, which is extremely low. And by ranking, we can rank our country about 121st amongst 197 countries in the world, which is a very still not good. First of all, your thoughts on what you think the minimum wage can bring to the table. Is it a relevant topic to discuss? Because we've had it on several platforms in Parliament, but nothing has been done yet.
Okay. First of all, my name is Asha Wilson Owere. I'm the Chairman General of the National Organization of Trade Unions, NOTO. Now, when you talk about minimum wage is the basic pay that is paid to the lowest worker, and that worker who is not actually in any organized form. And it's supposed to be that pay that puts that relationship between the worker and the employer. Now, minimum wage history in Uganda was last put in place in 1984. And by then it was 6,000. And you know that there was a devaluation of money and so on. But as we talk today, minimum wage was activated by National Organization of Trade Unions. And one of our member of parliament, that is Ainet Rakajara, brought up a private members bill. But that was after we had several times demanded for minimum wage. The Minister of Gender started they formed a committee. That was after protracted war between us and them. We went to ILO. Actually, the ministry lost that case, and they were instructed to come and put in place minimum wage. Now, after some time, they started the process. They even put the board in place. The board was comprising of workers, employers, and the ministry and other stakeholders. The board did their research, but they were moving slowly. So our member of parliament initiated a private members bill, and that bill was passed in 2019. it went to the president and he declined to sign, simply because there was no, they were not coordinated between the ministry. The minister was doing its own bill, was tracking his own bill, but for us we moved ahead because it was apparent that the minister was moving slowly, and the president declined to sign the bill because of the advice from the ministry. Now, the proposal in that, first of all, the law, which actually is supposed to be, was a very old law of 1950 something, actually before I was even born. Now, our member of parliament tried to review and put in place a new law, which actually has not been signed. But we have hope because what we are doing currently, we are supposed to dialogue with His Excellency the President. Because that time there was a perception that minimum wage would deter investment and so on. But at a certain stage we explained to the President, he understood our stand, because we were telling him the minimum wage we want should be sector by sector, where you have education, where you have those in agriculture, maybe up country, and we come up with something moderate, which I think at a certain stage he agreed with us, but we have not had an opportunity to dialogue with him, and that is what we are looking forward, because the main person who is now not comfortable with minimum wage is the president. He has his own view, we also have our own view. So we must first of all coordinate and come together and agree on how we are going to pursue that. And then it will be done.
Yes. Mr. Mukundane, I'll go to you before I come back to Mr. Were on the same issue. You are the PR of the Uganda Association for External Recruitment Agencies. Now, we understand these agencies come into Uganda and get to take workers abroad. And these workers have rights, they have a minimum wage, at least set as per standards. Can you tell us a little bit more about the minimum wage as per workers who are working abroad, Ugandan workers who are working abroad at the moment?
Thank you, Anthony. Again, I'll allow me to introduce myself once again. My name is Ronnie Mukundane, and I work as the Public Relations Officer at the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agencies, a body that is known as WERA. This is an association of licensed recruitment companies, those that have been licensed by the government of Uganda to source and place Ugandans abroad, specifically for employment. On the issue of minimum wage, for us we normally call it minimum pay when we are talking externalization. Chairman Were here has indeed spoken and given the history about it at the local level. But for us who are dealing with sending people abroad, we have what we call a minimum pay. And that minimum pay is derived, for example, again as per category. And when I bring you to speed, the category of domestic workers, the ones we send to Saudi Arabia, because the government of Uganda signed the bilateral labor agreement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, does specify the amount of money they are to earn. And that is an equivalent of 900,000 Uganda shillings. So below that, the government of Uganda, through the Ministry of Gender, will not clear, and of course even us, UWERA, will not be able to be party to anyone externalizing a domestic worker below that pay. That aside, the other categories, I would say the minimum amount one is supposed to earn before being cleared is 1.2. So the other job categories, cleaners, security guards, and the others anyway, no one is to be or supposed to be cleared if the person is not going to earn more than 1.2. So I would say for us in the labor externalization, there is a minimum pay, and it goes by those two specific categories.
I'll come back to you, Mr. Oweri, on the same issue. We understand trade unions help workers to be in a more organized way. And for example, if we are flaunting for minimum wages, one way that we can actually hit the jackpot is if we are organized. Could one of the reasons why the president is not affirming or assenting to this bill be that our trade unions are still lacking in some sort of organization or structure, or people have not actually realized the importance and relevance of trade unions?
It's not relevant per se, but you know, it's the ideology which I think the government is trying to promote. First of all, the president has his own view about minimum wage, and for him he's tagging it to people, especially he says he wants to see more factory first before he can come up and say we fix this. But you know, economically it's not something that we need now to engage him the more. The trade union we are talking about is those audited union where you have to put a lot of mass for and so on. But trade union of today is a brain work. You come with your facts, lay on the table, negotiate with the government, and come out with something tangible. I think that the point here is because if trade union can push a bill and it goes up to it passes through parliament, and then because we have our MPs in parliament, and then the president has not signed, that means we need now to dialogue with him. If we fail, then that's when you go for the last option. And that's last option we are talking about. About workers being in the trade union, I think there is also a weakness with the leaders. We are supposed to promote the union, ensure that all workers belong to that voice. Because if you have one voice, you are listened to. But if you have different voices, it becomes very difficult. So partly I will agree with you that we have not pushed so hard to see that the workers come together. But we are now set and we are doing exactly that. Because as I talk to you now, there are more members in the union today than before. And people have come to understand the relevance of being together, unity, to unite and put their voices together, to demand and put in place policies, laws that can help them achieve their livelihood.
Well, when you talk about that, I still kind of see as if the trade unions are limited. I understand we have many trade unions, and you say they dated way back, and the idea has changed, and the ideology has also to change. For example, we have the Uganda Medical Workers Union, which is also under NOTU, if I'm not mistaken. We also have the Uganda Hotel, Food, Tourism, and Allied Workers Union, as well as the Amalgamated Transport, General Works Union. And all these look very nice, and they have a certain specific labor force they are looking at. How about the workers in the informal sector? Mr. Mukundane has just talked about domestic workers who are going to Saudi Arabia. They have a minimum pay of 900,000. Now, how about have the trade unions also catered for some of these other informal sector, labor force people that are working in other sectors?
Let me start with the formal sector. Formal sector, like you mentioned, the amalgamated transport and general workers, that happens. I happen to be the national chairman before I go into NOTO. The unions like hotels and so on, NOTO has got 34 unions under it, and they are in different sectors. Now, the 34 unions have in different sectors like hotel, those ones negotiate for those workers in the hotels in the areas of the hotel, and their pay is actually, most of them is beyond minimum wage. Now, when you go to a place like Civil Aviation Authority, you can't compare them with any other workforce in this country. So it's what I built myself when I was still working there. Now, those ones now don't need what we call minimum wage. They now need living wage. Because there is a difference between living wage and minimum wage. Minimum wage is the basic pay that people, formal sector, like people who are working vertical here, those ones, the house girl and so on, those ones who are doing small jobs.
Domestic work.
Yes, those are the ones who are actually in for minimum wage. But when you talk of living wage, it's now people now talk about you are trying to get more money than the basic pay. And that one, the unions have achieved, because unions have got what they call collective bargaining agreement. They negotiate with the employers. When they negotiate with the employers, it depends on the skills that you use in negotiation. And most of our people, actually, who have been negotiating with the labor unions, have really progressed. They are more than what you are talking about, minimum wage.
Mr. Ronnie, would you agree that why most of our Ugandans, yes, I understand you're in this business, and yes, you're overseeing this business as people are moving abroad to look for work and better opportunities, but do you think that one of the reasons that most people are seeking this employment abroad is the fact that they have not been well taken care of back home here?
It is a fact. We know, of course, among the many reasons, there's what we call push factors. And push factors are ideally those reasons that people leave their countries of origin to go and source for employment abroad. And one of those factors here is the high unemployment levels. And also we normally look at the underemployment, whereby one is employed, earning what they feel is less than what they qualify for. This does not go alone, but also we have what we call the pull factors. Those in different destination countries that kind of entice our people to leave and go to those specific countries. For example, when we look at the countries in the Middle East, the economies in the Middle East are growing, and for that matter, they have so many foreigners working there. And of course, that does not only apply to the other countries like Philippines and Bangladesh and all that, it also attracts Ugandans. So you'll find that however much people would want to go elsewhere, but the environment, the urge that the destination country, for example, those in the Middle East, create for the migrant workers does not only apply to the other countries, but also attracts the Ugandans. And things like, of course, you also agree with me that, for example, the people who have Ugandans, first of all over the world. We have Ugandans in China, we have Ugandans in South Africa, in America, in Europe, and all that. But what tends to be different is that those who go to the Middle East, first of all, most of the things, or those that are going to benefit in terms of accommodation, transport, are normally catered for those who have traveled regularly. And the fact that they are not going to spend money on themselves, meaning whatever target they have at home, they are sure that when they go and work for a specific period of time that they have agreed, they'll be able to raise their money and send it here either for investment or come back with it here and invest it. Other than when you look at those, for example, in Europe, most of our Ugandans who travel to Europe, when they earn, they start trying to get citizenship, they pay for accommodation and all that. So yes, there are those, as I said, push factors, but also the pull factors tend to create that. And of course, when you have many people here not doing a lot, they will always go. And of course, they always see the benefits of those who are there, what they're sending home and what they've done. So those plus others like domestic issues, some of those that make our people travel to work abroad. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still talking effective urban employment for economic stability. And of course, on a set with me is Mr. Owere Wilson from the National Organization of Trade Unions and Mr. Mukundane from UERA, an organization or agency that is responsible for workers going abroad to work. We're going to take a quick breather. When we return, we talk more on labor externalization and some of the key factors that are supposed to be put in balance at the moment so that we can survive in this tough economic time. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.